Welcome to r/malicious compliance, where we share stories of people conforming to the letter but not the spirit of a request. Thank you friends for subscribing to the channel and for so many likes. The first story. Manager did not listen to the employee, my mother, because she did not have a diploma and screwed up. The second story. Manager wanted me to come to work earlier than my schedule. The third story. Friend of a friend owed me $475 in high school. 6 years later, I finally got some money from him. The first story is a 50K malicious compliance. So this is my mother's story and an old one, but I still remember it fondly. My mother was a potting and coating specialist and did special soldering work for a major defense contractor. While she couldn't afford to go to college, she has a solid 35-year career in newer stuff. This happened about 10 years before she retired. Early 90s, her company decided to do a big push where they wanted all managers to have a degree. Any degree. This resulted in her manager, who had years of shop experience, being replaced not by my mother or one of her coworkers, but by a 22-year-old with a BA in interior design. My mother as well as her coworkers were fairly vocal about this, but management insisted. Both of my parents worked for the same company, but among my friends' parents it seemed to be a pretty common theme in the 90s. Fast forward a few months and a circuit board arrives in the shop. My mother reviews the instructions and realizes they checked the wrong box. Now, I'm no coding expert, but generally there's two main ways to protect: to carefully spot costly areas that need coating, or to pot it by filling any open spaces with resin. This type of board needed coating, but they checked the potting box. Now, my mother is actually a pretty nice lady, so she goes to the manager and tells her they need to get the paperwork corrected so she can code it and the manager can sign off on it. The manager proceeded to berate my mother that she had no place to question what the form said, that it's filled out by engineers who are way smarter than her and actually know what they're doing, and to do what she's told. My mother goes back to her workstation, carefully solders on the pieces, grabs a mold and pots the board. She put this circuit board into a solid cube of potting resin like it was suspended in a cube of ice, perfectly visible and untouchable. She slaps the paperwork on top, gets the manager to sign off, sends it down the line at 4 p.m., and picked me up from school with the biggest eating grin. The next day, she comes home with the next part of the story. Turns out that wasn't just a circuit board, hence the hand-filled-out form. It was a prototype. The board cost $50K to replace in straight manufacturing costs, and put them 2 weeks behind on their defense contract. And while yes, the engineer did make the initial mistake, my mother was more than happy to explain to upper management that actually the mistake had been noticed and caught, but the shop manager refused to address it. The manager lasted about another month. They replaced her with someone with a completely unnecessary electrical degree, who cost a ton more than just getting someone who knew coding, or heaven forbid would listen to those who did. The more I hear about company policies like this, the more I love my own company. We recently instituted that new employees should have a degree, but anyone already in the company is not required to go get one if they don't. My company has been pretty consistent in promoting and retaining based off of merit, and the only firings I've seen were very deserved. Been pretty good. Although it used to be much worse in my other job. I worked for a company 10 years ago. I had a colleague who was a security guard. This guy had worked there for about 20 years, but when the time came, they wouldn't give him a promotion because he didn't have a degree. They decided to hire a rookie who had just graduated from college, and then send him to train this rookie. My colleague refused to train the new employee, and went to a competitor who took him down. The second story is get paid for literally doing nothing for an hour. You got it. A few years ago, I worked retail at a store where people would stop by to purchase video games. After about 2 years, our district manager decided that in order to properly open a store, the opening employee needed to arrive 2 hours before the store opened. He was such a stickler for this, he fired a good friend of mine for violating his policy. Granted, my friend would show up 15 minutes before the store was supposed to open, and would frequently skip a lot of the required opening duties. It was actually my friend getting fired that got me transferred to this particular store. Now, the location was in a mall, and store itself was about twice the size of your standard broom closet. This meant that including a 15-minute trip to the bank to deposit the cash from the previous day, it never took more than an hour to get the store ready to be open. This meant that if I showed up at 9 a.m., I could easily have the store ready to open at 10 a.m., when the mall opened. Also, showing up at an hour before the store opened gave me an extra hour to help out whoever was closing the store that evening with normal duties, like processing shipments, organizing merchandise, being rude to jerk customers, etc. After about a week or two of this, I get a very angry call from the district manager. He had apparently wanted something at 8:15 one morning and called the store. Because no one answered, he decided that no one was showing up to open the store properly, and that must mean that the store was a complete mess. I explained to him that the store was small enough that it didn't require 2 hours to get ready to open, even if there was still things needed to be done from the night before, which while not frequent was common enough that I was used to it. I also explained that because of how corporate works the scheduling, me showing up an hour earlier meant I had to leave an hour earlier, which would increase the workload for anyone who was closing. He didn't want to hear it, as this was his policy, and I was the only one not following it in his whole district, and that if I didn't follow his orders, then I could look for a new job. Well, not wanting to lose my sweet gig of selling video games to the colorful customers of this particular game store, I complied. So from then on, I would show up at 8 a.m. sharp every morning I was opening the store. I would get everything I needed done around the store by 8:30 and be back from the bank by 8:45. I would then sit on the counter and wait for 10 a.m. Then I would leave an hour earlier than usual, so I had more time to do other things. I was going to college full time, so having an extra hour was actually a blessing. This, however, meant whoever was closing the store was on their own for an hour, before the rest of the closing staff would show up. The true malicious compliance, however, came the day I was opening, and the store manager had to call out sick. In order to save on possible overtime, which the company was completely against for any reason, the district manager agreed to cover her closing shift. This day just happened to be a day where it was particularly slow in the evening, so I had the store looking perfect when he showed up for the closing shift. To make things even better, the shipment for that day was late, and so it showed up shortly before I was to clock out. On top of that, the traffic into the store picked up, as I was having to leave. This meant that I left the district manager with a large shipment needing to be processed, a store full of snot-nosed kids and angry soccer moms, and no one to help him deal with this for at least another hour. Needless to say, the look of angry frustration on his face as I clocked out is one of my most cherished memories from my time at that store. He stopped harassing you if your store was good to go at the open. He also transferred to a district far away, so the issue solved itself. I love it when the rules come back to bite them in the A. The store manager has no idea how long it takes to get something done, allocates too much time, ends up paying overtime for employees to do nothing. It peeves me off that managers do these things. I mean, he didn't even go to your store to look. He just assumed. I also had a manager like that. He made the employees come in early to work, in order to get the merchandise on the counter, but he didn't know that all that work was done in the evening. We obeyed and started coming in early, but just like in your story, after a while we started leaving early. Because no one was paying us for the extra hour of work, the boss found out about the order, and the manager was transferred to another department, and our schedule became the same as it was before that manager. Thank goodness. The last story is... Oh, I owe you now? This story starts when I was in high school. I had a mutual friend that I always seemed to hang out with even though I never really liked the guy. He was a friend of one of my best friends, so he always seemed to hang around. We will call him Annoying D, AD. AD was never that good with money growing up. I worked all my summers in high school and worked on weekends during the school year to just have money to do things with and not borrow from my parents, all the time. AD did not. He was that guy who would always say, "I forgot my wallet, I'll pay you back." So throughout high school, I would try to be a nice guy and help him out. It wouldn't BW anything major, just forgot money for Taco Bell, $10 or $20 here and there. I'm not a very organized person, unless it comes to my money, so I kept every receipt that I ever covered for him, all in the hopes of I'll pay you back. Years and years went on. Every once in a while, he would need some cash for a video game or some food or whatever, and I would just say okay, because I'm trying to be a nice guy to him, since we have mutual friends we will need to get along, since we see each other enough. I would try to remind him to pay me back, but I would just always get a next time or an I don't have cash on me. Then after high school, he buys a new car in cash, and then I realized I'm not getting my money. I thought about it and decided to let it go. If that was the cost of never having to see this guy again, it was worth it. Until our mutual friend is getting married, and AD is the best man. He decided we're going to Vegas. Everyone was on board. He said he can get a deal on airline tickets if he bought everyone's together, but we would just pay him back. Then I get an email from him saying I owe him $320, and I'm thinking I could have found cheaper tickets myself. He tells me I got them for $220 through work. He works for my airline as a baggage handler, but they sell to you guys for $340, so you're really saving money. I just say, okay, I'll send you some money. So I found up all the receipts I had from over the years, and it turns out that he owes me $475. So I send him an email of dates and an itemized bill, basically of everything I ever bought for him. He just went silent. A week later, he just sends me an email with the confirmation number for the ticket, so I'm good to go. I end up going on the trip for free, but the entire trip was super awkward for him, and he wouldn't look at me. He still owes me 155 bucks, but it was well worth it. Edit. Some people have been asking some questions. 1. Did he mark up your tickets to pay for the groom's ticket? No. He paid the groom's ticket all himself and made sure to remind us that every day of the trip. 2. Did you not tell your friends that he marked the tickets up to make money? Yes, I told my friends. They just said whatever, we'll get the money back from him on the trip. So we went out to eat together and played credit card roulette to pay the final bill. And we talked to our waitress, and she was on the board to rig the game to make him buy all of us supper. 3. Why didn't you get the rest of the money? I did hint at it through our trip. Without saying, give me my effing money back. But I take it as a win if he never talks to me again, because he doesn't want to be confronted about the money I'm owed. Then it was worth every penny. Edit 2. Some more questions I can hopefully answer to clear things up. Why did you even keep giving him money? I don't really have a good answer, to be honest with you. It's not like I'd be volunteering and say I'll volunteer as tribute. It would be more of SH I forgot my wallet, or I'm a couple bucks short, or whatever. But when you go out to eat with someone and he eats, has no money and everybody else says no to him, it's hard to look him in the face and say, sorry, start washing dishes. So I would tell him, I'll cover you, just pay me back this time. Just to keep the peace, because I've been in that situation before, so I feel bad for him. And after so long of doing it, I started saving all the receipts, because they might come in handy eventually. He can get in deep SH if his company finds out he was profiting on selling tickets, so you should have turned that into them. Well, I totally would have when this happened, but now I have no desire to go take his livelihood out of spite. And I have zero proof. I believe he got the tickets at a certain price, looked online after he bought 9 of them, after the prices went up, and basically thought he could make some quick cash by lying to us. Or to seem like he is cool and important because he has a large ego. Why wait 6 years to get back at him and not just ask for the money back? Well, I've tried to ask for the money back, then we got out of touch. He moved to town over and I forgot about him and the money until this party. I would have probably just paid the ticket and let everything slide if he would have gave us the honest ticket price. He had to be a D about it, so I was having none of it, and I was a bigger D back. You sound like a decent guy who puts up with a lot of crap from a garbage man. I'm glad you got at least some of your money back and don't have to deal with him anymore. This post reminded me that I owe my best friend $34 for the sushi we ate in college when I was unemployed. Every time I think back, I feel ashamed and wonder if she remembers too. Thank you for watching. Bye.